Hello and welcome to Selenium training from ABSoftTrainings. This is Bakshu Sheikh, your instructor. A brief introduction about myself. I have total 8 plus years of experience in software testing, automation frameworks, test management and QA processes. I have been working with Selenium for more than 5 plus years and also have very good experience in Selenium automation, different automation frameworks used with Selenium. In this video tutorial, we'll be looking at introduction to automation and web testing. This is the first tutorial in a series of tutorials that guide you through Selenium automation and give you everything you want for your Selenium automation job and how to be more productive and effective from day one of your job. In this tutorial, we are going to cover these topics: why we need automation, what is automation testing, advantages and disadvantages of automation testing, advantages and disadvantages of manual testing, automation criteria, focusing on web applications and web testing, automation for web application. So let's get started. Nowadays, almost all companies are going for automation and investing in automation. Also, automation jobs are very rewarding and there is a huge job market. So, why we need automation? Because software tests have to be repeated during development cycles to ensure quality. Whenever there are new builds due to bug fixes or change requests or new features, we need to execute required software tests to make sure that new build is working fine as expected and there are no new bugs introduced. Every time source code is changed, software tests should be performed. Also, for each release of the software, it may be tested on all supported operating systems and supported environments. You should be definitely thoroughly testing on important supported platforms for a new release. Manually repeating these tests is costly and time consuming. It takes a lot of time and effort to repeat these tests manually for new builds. For example, you have daily new builds to be tested, which takes a lot of time. That's why we need automation. Once automation tests are created, they can be run over and over again at no additional cost, and they can be much more faster than manual tests. They can be also run distributedly and parallelly or multiple machines to be much more faster. Now we will look into what is automation testing. Automation testing involves making manual testing automatic using a software or tool. For example, we use an automation tool like Selenium and automate manual test cases by creating automation scripts for them. An effective automation testing involves following main areas. Develop automation scripts. Here we develop automation scripts for manual test cases. Record and playback feature provided by automation tools will be very helpful in developing automation scripts. Execute automation scripts. Whenever required, automation scripts should be executed. Ideally, you want to automate kicking off your automation. You don't want to spend very long time in starting your automation. Compare actual results with expected results. Let's say that you have run 100 tests but can't say which one are passed and which one are failed. Then the tests are useless. You need an effective validation criteria to compare actual application runtime results with expected predefined results. Control test execution. You should be able to perform activities like repeating your test for different data sets, calling other tests for a test, like that. Set up or configure test preconditions and post conditions. Generally, before running your test, there will be some setup activities like uninstalling old build and installing new build, load required configuration, generating required data in database. Also, there will be some post activities after test like cleaning up the databases, stopping any logger applications. Ideally, you should automate any such test pre and post setup activities. Report execution results. Let's say that you have run 1000 automation tests and you need to send execution report to your manager. You don't want to go through each and find out whether it's passed or failed. It will be very time consuming. You should automate reporting so that it generates some nice HTML reports and it sends an email. Your job is done, you're happy. Automation framework. This is the core part of automation and it facilitates all other activities. All the above ones mentioned. You should have a good hybrid automation framework with keyword driven, data driven frameworks implemented. A good automation framework makes maintenance a lot easier. Generally, test automation involves automating a manual testing already in place. You already have manual test cases, manual testing going on. Now you will do market research, decide best automation tool for your project or application based on your testing and automation requirements and start automation. Let's look at a real world scenario and see how different automation testing areas are applicable and how they work together. Let's say you have a test case for an e-commerce application to ensure that users' order history is displayed correctly, and you need to run this test for every build. In order to run the test case, you'll be doing following. Deploy latest build, make sure some users are there with orders in database, go to home page, log in as a user, go to order history page, verify the order history table, repeat steps 3 to 6 for different users. Now coming to automation testing areas. First one is develop automation scripts. You need to develop automation scripts for this test case. Execute automation scripts. You need to execute automation scripts for every new build. Compare actual results with expected results. This one you'll be doing at step 6 and decide whether test is passed or failed. In this case, the validation criteria can be like comparing actual order history table with expected order history table. Control test execution. This is represented by step 7. You are repeating your test with different users to test a variety of order histories like purchases, refunds, set up or configure test preconditions and post conditions. This is represented by steps 1 and 2. You should automate that as well. Report execution results. If you are running for 10 user sets, you don't want to go and find out whether the test case is passed or failed for each individual iteration. Also, if you are doing this with other tests, it will be much more complicated. You should have a nice reporting mechanism. Automation framework. You should have a good hybrid automation framework with keyword driven and data driven frameworks to facilitate all above activities. What are advantages and disadvantages of automation testing? Let's look at advantages first. Saves time and cost. Tests are run significantly faster than manual tester, so it saves time and cost. Effective regression testing. Tests can be run against source code changes to catch regression defects. Repeatable on different environments. Tests can be repeatedly run on different platforms and environments. They can be also run in parallel and distributed on multiple machines. Accuracy. Performs precisely the same operations every time when the tests are run, thereby eliminating any human mistakes by manual testers. Increases test coverage. Automation testing can look inside an application and verify internal application objects and states. Comprehensive. Automation testing can easily run thousands of different complex tests or suits during every run, providing comprehensive coverage. Reusable. Tests can be reusable for different versions of your application with few changes. Automate daily tasks to save time and cost. You should also automate the daily tasks like sending bug reports, status emails to save time considerably. Let's look at disadvantages. It costs more to automate initially than manual testing. You can start manual testing straight away for a test case, but for automation, you need to pick a tool, develop automation framework, and start writing automation scripts. This takes considerable amount of time, and initially to start with, it takes time for automation. But once things are in place, it's a lot easier. You can't automate everything like user acceptance testing, visual effects, like that. What you automate depends on the tools you use. If there are any limitations with the tool, you need to stick with them. In that case, either you use help of other tool or wait for future release for support. For example, if you take Selenium, it can't automate Windows applications. Let's look at advantages and disadvantages of manual testing. Let's start with advantages first. If you need to test only 1 or 2 times, manual testing is better. Allows the tester to perform more exploratory testing to find out more defects. Let's say that you are testing a feature and you are finding some defects. Now you can concentrate more in that direction to find out more defects. This is not possible in automation as test steps are predefined. Coming to disadvantages, running tests manually is very time consuming. This is the main reason why we want to go for automation, to save time and costs. Human mistakes may occur during testing, like entering wrong input values or wrong comparison results. Let's compare automation testing versus manual testing. Which one is better? What do you think? Generally, advantages of automation testing outweighs its disadvantages or manual testing advantages. Automation testing is best over the time. Now, let's look at automation criteria. You have a test case whether to automate it or not. The general rule of thumb has always been to use common sense. For tests that need to be run 1 or 2 times or tests that are really expensive to automate, go for manual testing. For tests that need to be run multiple times or frequently, for example say for every build, daily, weekly, go for automation testing. Entire automation versus manual testing criteria, it depends upon which one is worth in terms of medium and long term, in terms of time and cost. To easily understand this further, we can say automating a test case depends upon 3 main factors as mentioned below. First, is the test case automatable? Second, importance or frequency. Third, time and cost. As mentioned in the table, it's always good to automate if a test case is automatable and importance or frequency are high or medium, irrespective of time and cost. If it costs a lot to automate and importance or frequency are low, probably you may automate or you may not automate. Maybe you may not automate. And finally, if you can't automate a test case, there is no other way, you need to manually test it. Let's look at some real-world e-commerce test cases and apply automation criteria. Let's see which one are most likely to automate. First test case is a user registers for an account. Yes, it's really important and we want to automate it. Second one is a user purchases a product. Yes, it's also really important and we want to automate it. Third one is a user deletes his account. Generally, it's a rare case, so you may automate it or not, it depends. Normally, you look at the effort and based on effort, you will decide. Now, let's look at web applications and what they are. What is a web application? Think for a moment. Okay, let's find it out. A web application is an application which is developed using a browser supported language and accessed via web browser over a network such as internet or intranet. Now let's look at some characteristics or properties of web applications. Web applications are easy to maintain. There is no client software is required. Any new features or updates, they are done at server and they are easily available to customers without any installation. For example, if you have Office 2010 and if you want to upgrade to 2013, you need to uninstall Office 2010 and install Office 2013. Also, any future product updates or patches, you need to apply them. All these activities will be easy with web applications. Web applications are easily accessible. They're accessible from anywhere in the world. You just need a system and internet connection. They are getting more and more popular. Because of the above factors, web applications are getting more and more popular. Now let's look at web testing. What is web testing? Web testing is the name given to software testing that focuses on web applications. It is one of the fastest growing areas of software testing. Following are the important web testing areas. First one is functionality testing. You'll be doing link testing, forms or fields testing, cookies testing, database testing in this area. Next one is usability testing. You'll be looking at easy navigation, content, grammar, spell checking, other options like site search, sitemap or site help files. Next one is interface testing. Make sure that different internal components are working fine together. You should consider testing interfaces like web server and application server interface, application server and database server interface. The next one is compatibility testing. In compatibility testing, you will be testing browser compatibility, operating system compatibility, and mobile compatibility. Let's look into details. First one is browser compatibility. Test that your application works fine on major browsers like Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Google Chrome. You should be also testing on major versions of each browser to ensure compatibility. For example, in case of IE, test with IE9, IE10, IE11. The next one is operating system compatibility. Test that your application works fine on major operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, Linux. You should be also testing on major versions of each operating system to ensure compatibility. For example, in case of Windows, test with Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows Server 2012. Mobile compatibility. Test that your application works fine on major mobile systems like iPhone, Windows, Android. You should be also testing on major versions of each mobile system to ensure compatibility. The next one is performance testing. The main areas you want to consider are load testing, stress testing, and soak testing. Performance testing is really very important for web applications as there will be concurrent users using the application. Let's start with load testing. Test the web application performance with expected peak load. For example, say if you expect 500 maximum concurrent users at any time, test your web application with that peak load and see the performance. Coming to stress testing, test the web application performance beyond the peak loads and see how it's behaving, whether it's very slow or crashing. If it's crashing, how it's recovering. For example, if 500 concurrent users is your peak load, you will do stress testing by increasing concurrent users to 600 users, 700 users, and so on, and you will be seeing the behavior. Coming to soak testing, test your web application for longer time under peak load. For example, with 500 users peak load, test it for 48 hours and see the behavior. Are the responses fast enough? Are there any memory leaks? You will be testing all those type of things. The next one is security testing. In security testing, you will test invalid login and inputs, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, unauthorized access, and penetration. You want to make sure that your application is robust enough and it's not vulnerable to any security threats. This is really very important for banks and financial firms. Most of the companies aim to automate following areas: functionality testing, interface testing, and regression testing. The next one is compatibility testing and performance testing. Performance testing, it's a completely different area and it should be done by a performance testing tool like load runner or JMeter. The next one is security testing, which is also getting popular nowadays, and yeah, it's also a completely different area. It should be done by a security testing tool. In this training, we'll be concentrating on the first two ones, which are mainly functionality testing automation areas. A number of commercial and open source tools are available for web testing automation like Selenium and QTP. Selenium is a open source and free tool. QTP is a commercial tool. Selenium is possibly the most widely used open source solution for web testing automation. Selenium is used to automate functionality testing, interface testing, regression testing, and compatibility testing. It's time to do some real-world exercises. Let's say that you are automating an email application like Gmail, and you have got following test cases to automate. Which ones are most likely to automate? Define your automation criteria, which one are very important, which ones are less important, and plan accordingly. These are the test cases: sending an email, changing font settings, deleting an account, restoring a deleted account. Let's look at the next exercise. Let's say that you are automating an e-commerce application like Amazon. What all web testing areas would you consider for automation? Go through different web testing areas like functionality testing, security testing, interface testing, performance testing, and considering web automation with Selenium, what areas would you consider?